15th, and we are interviewing Janice Mohammed. Janice was born 9/15/1957. Janice, could you state for the record what branch of service you served in?
I served in the United States Army.
Okay, and your highest rank was E6 Staff Sergeant?
Yes.
Okay. And you served 1977, 1981, and that was in the Army. And then you were in active reserve, U.S. Army active reserve, 1982, 1984.
Correct.
Okay. Would you like to share your history and your story about the service time?
Wow. Sure, I would like to share what I remember. Hopefully we can get talking and you can ask questions and I can remember some things. I know I remember having an aunt and an uncle who both were in the military during the Vietnam era, and I really admired them, but especially I admired my aunt. I loved her and I wanted to be like her. She was in the Air Force, and I had aspirations of being in healthcare and the medical field. So I thought that going in the military would be a great opportunity to do that. And I guess one of my fondest memories, maybe it wasn't so fond, maybe it was when I look back at it now, but then it was kind of traumatic. I'd been enlisted, and I had a woman who was my recruiter, and I told her I was interested in going into the healthcare field and that I had become certified medical assistant. And the job that I enlisted for was in personnel. And so she said, oh, don't worry, just take your certificate with you to boot camp at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and let them know, and they'll change you when it's time to do the paperwork for your advanced training. They call it the AIT. So it's like, okay. So I did that when I got to boot camp, and I was in processing, and somebody said, I don't remember who, the soldier, you will get back in that line, and you will be a 75 Delta 10 for the next 4 years. And I was kind of devastated because I'm like, oh, I don't want to go in the healthcare field, and I wanted to be a nurse. I actually dropped out of college. So I could take care of myself and generate some money against my mother's advice to, join the military. So I went to Fort Jackson for basic training, and I remember just taking pride in my, everything I was doing with the training. And we were in the era that they were beginning to, well, it was at the beginning of the end of the Women's Army Corps, and there was this move to integrate the training of men and women in the military, even at the basic training level, and they were beginning to be more co-ed, but our unit was still all women, but we had a male drill sergeant and I guess assistant female drill sergeant. So I can remember one of my I guess you can call it women Army people. We were roommates, and they said, one night you got up and you was talking in your sleep, and you said, yes, sir, Drill Sergeant Private Foster reporting. So it was pretty intense training, and I guess I was dreaming about it and, speaking about it in my sleep. But another highlight of basic training was we had to have kind of like a competition who could, make their beds the best and, prepare their uniforms the best and have them all ironed and creased and their boots all shined. And I won the competition, and I got a chance to be off, I think it was for a weekend. And so that was pretty cool. I thought it was pretty cool that I, was able to be the sharpest, tack in my bed. You could bounce a quarter off of my bed. It was made so well, and all the corners were metered just so perfectly, and everything was like lined up in my drawer, so it was pretty cool. And then I was devastated when I got orders after basic training, and we did this military personnel specialist was my first MOS or job type, and I came down on orders to go to South Korea, and I was like, what? This is like, really? South Korea? Whoever knows? So naive. I don't know what I was thinking when I joined the military, other than I wanted an opportunity to work in the healthcare field and be a nurse. So I went to, get processed and to transfer and change stations to South Korea. Was Camp Walker in Daegu, South Korea, and we took a bus ride after the flight over, long, flight, overseas flight, and we landed in Seoul, Korea, and had to take a old Greyhound bus to Daegu. And I had a very short, natural hairstyle. I call it an afro, and I had on my fatigues, my Green Army fatigues, and no makeup and everything. So we stopped on a rest stop to go in the bathroom, and when I walked in, all the women began to yell, "Oh, GI, no GI, no GI," and I was like, "What is going on?" And I had to open my uniform, and and of course I had on a t-shirt. I'm a woman, like, calm down, kind of thing. It was kind of like wow, this is my introduction to a new culture and everything, and it was so I was really homesick and everything, and just acclimated to that role. And so fast forward, I spent a year there, and some things, like I said, I was really naive about. Some things I was experiencing, I really didn't know what I was experiencing until later on, because again, there were, of course, had been women before me in the military who served in all kind of capacities, but a lot of the units and the roles were still pretty predominantly men. I remember going home on leave and just being so homesick and having that experience. And I think there was a big airline strike. I think it was Northwest Orient. I don't think they operate any longer. It was Northwest Airlines. And anyway, got stuck in Guam at Okinawa, Japan, rather, at the Air Force Base there. And that was kind of interesting, like, being stuck there for 10 days. And so I still took my leave. So that extended my time in Daegu, South Korea, I think an additional 10 days. But the experience was great. And one day I was working in a room where they did key punch at that time. And the senior enlisted person came down from somewhere, I don't remember, and they were doing, I guess, a kind of inspection of our personnel operations, and said, "Hey, soldier, where would you like to go?" I was so homesick, and I just still didn't know how to appreciate the culture and the experience. I said, "I want to go home." I said, "Where's home?" I said, "Home, St. Louis, Missouri." So he did this key punch card, and it popped out, and he threw it in a pile. He said, "Yeah, so you probably get a chance to go home now." And little did I know, a few months later, I came down on orders to go to St. Louis for my next duty station. And I can remember my non-commissioned officer in charge, they call it NCOIC. It's like, "Soldier, how did you get those orders? Those are those are orders that are usually for senior enlisted people." I didn't know. I was like, in the back of my mind, I was like, could that key punch card had actually, really generated these orders? But that experience, from that the last 3 years of my enlistment, I was in a 4-year enlistment, was at the St. Louis Military Records Center. And it was this huge center that had all of the records of all of the military branches. And prior to that, I don't remember the history. I should look this up for this opportunity. But there was a fire there, and many of the military records were burned. And the ones that could be salvaged, they had them all over the center, and they were on clotheslines, and they were trying to, assemble and reassemble and put together these records. And then I guess at that time they started, and maybe they were already in the process of starting to put these records on microfiche. But I guess the whole fire expedited this process of, we need to be, start the computer age, because at that time computers were, took up, rooms, and to put these records on microfiche. Well, doing my work, I was a part of the discharge review board process, not the board itself, but the inner workings to get these records prepared to go before a discharge review board. And this is during Jimmy Carter's administration. And many service members from all branches had, some had gone and I guess you can call it averted the draft. Some left the country, and then some, I guess for whatever reasons, did not get drafted. And so they wanted their discharges reviewed, or either those who had gone in and maybe they went AWOL or whatever for conscientious objector reasons. They had an opportunity, and I guess it was an act of Congress. I don't remember. I should have gone back and done more research. I feel kind of embarrassed, but at that time I did know a lot. But these service members were allowed to have their discharges reviewed, so that they could be, restored or given an honorable discharge. And that way they would be eligible for benefits. And it was just really interesting to, finding records. Some records was destroyed. Some records had to be put back together, and to get these packets together based on, a request letter that was written from the service member, and it was all processed through St. Louis. So I thought that was pretty interesting, even though I was in a peacetime era. This started in about 76, so from 76 through 1980. And then after 76, 77, there was a movement that began from other service members who wanted their discharges reviewed that went beyond the Vietnam era. So I guess an act of Congress or some executive order came down to allow all these discharges from all eras to be reviewed. And one of the ones that kind of stand out in my memory was a nurse who was in World War II. And she and an enlisted guy fell in love and began to date. Or maybe they began to date and then they fell in love. And she was dishonorably discharged because she was fraternizing at that time, of course, and it's still probably pretty much today that enlisted members didn't fraternize with officer types. So this woman wanted her discharge reviewed so that she could get an honorable discharge because she had served well. It was just that interpersonal relationship with an enlisted person. So we had many other interesting cases that went before that we prepared the records to go before the discharge review board. And I did that. I think I gained an additional MOS, which was administrative specialist, because what we did mostly was, administrative and paperwork and processing records. And we worked with a lot of civilians in St. Louis, and we had this whole big operation in St. Louis on 12th and Spruce in St. Louis, Missouri. And downstairs was what they called the AFES at that time, which was the Armed Forces Interest and Examining Station. And so it was pretty cool to be, I think by that time I was a E3 when I started, and I was promoted to E5 while I was there, to just be a part of that piece of history. I don't know if a lot of people know about that, that under Jimmy Carter's administration that veterans were allowed to have an opportunity to have a hearing, to have their discharges elevated to an honorable. And there were a lot of people, of course, who were denied. I didn't really know a lot about all of the final determinations, but those records had to go back to the storage, this huge storage. So it's still there. I understand. And then I separated, and I went into an active reserve unit because I still had the goal of becoming a nurse. So I went into this reserve unit. I was the 21st General Hospital. It's about 1,000 beds, and I was gonna, go through all the steps. You had to be a 91 Bravo, which a hospital and field medic, and then you had to become a 91 Charlie, which was a hospital. No, it was a LPN, and then I was going to get a chance to go to nursing school, but the funding fell out, and I did the training for the hospital field medic at Fort Sam Houston in Texas. And so after that year that I was in the Army Reserve, I got pregnant, was married, got pregnant, and kind of put my plans on hold a little bit. But then my husband at that time was a music teacher in the public schools, and he laid off a lot of the extracurricular type instructors, art and PE and stuff like that. So an opportunity came available to take a slot in the U.S. Army Reserves as an active duty person. So my duty was at Fort Devens, Massachusetts, and there I worked as military personnel record specialist with officer records. So I was real familiar with officer records. And I think I did officer records when I was in St. Louis too, and enlisted records. So that whole records is really important because it documents the military career and all the things that need to be available for evaluations and promotions, and to follow that person throughout their military service time and go to St. Louis. And a lot of military veterans have those records pulled to this day to be able to substantiate claims or I guess for compensation. So that's kind of interesting how all that kind of, now as a VA employee and as a veteran, to see how all of that relates to how those records are so important. And so I worked at Fort Devens with officer records, and in 1982, 83, 82, my father was, he had already been diagnosed with cancer, but I guess the cancer progressed. And so I was able to take a reassignment to Chicago, and I was, again, with a pretty awesome job. I worked at the Military Interest Processing Station, which was formerly the AFES, the Air Force, or the Armed Forces, rather, Interest Examining Station. And I worked as a personnel who helped to do the physical examinations for women who were seeking to enter the military. So that was really interesting, to qualify people medically and to work along with other military service members from different branches, as well as civilian physicians, and take the women through this, the same kind of regimen in terms of physical examination and to see readiness and qualifications medically to enter in the military. And so that was a wonderful experience. I found that while I was in the military, I was able to do some continuing education and get college credits, because I still was on that trajectory to be a nurse. And I was promoted in Chicago to a staff sergeant. And I thought that was pretty cool. As a matter of fact, by the time I left Chicago, I was on the promotable list for E7. So that's pretty much my career as I remember. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I'm just going on and on.
So, okay, you were stationed in Seoul, in Korea.
In Daegu, South Korea.
In South Korea.
Yes.
Okay, so, and you said that it was hard for you because you missed your family.
Yes.
How did you stay in touch with your family?
Oh, letters, phone calls.
Okay, and you took one leave over there.
Yes.
And you got stranded.
Yes.
But you got to take a leave anyway.
Yes.
And it was a 10-day leave?
Yes, it was a 10-day leave. But I got stranded because of the airline strike, as I mentioned. I said Okinawa. But I think it was Guam now that I mentioned it. I think I get my history right. I think it was Guam. It was 10 years because there was a military base there. No, it was Okinawa. It was because of the Air Force Base there. Kadena Air Force Base. Okay, yeah. And got stranded there and spent most of my leave because I had taken part of the flight, and then I was going to connect with I was connecting. Oh, I know. I took what they call a hop from Daegu, South Korea to Okinawa, and then I was going to take a commercial airline from Okinawa to the States, and that's where I got stranded. Yeah.
But you got to make it home.
I got to make it home, and then I wanted to take my leave, and I was running out of time, so I stayed a little extra. I mean, it's all military. I stayed longer, so I kind of got in trouble for that. Yeah. I think they call it AWOL. And I felt bad. My grandmother was concerned, and so I went home. I ended up going back, of course, and it was interesting when I got back. My NCOIC, or my senior officer, was like, all good soldiers get in trouble. So this is not the this is not the end. It's not a good thing that you did this, but we understand all the circumstances with the travel and all of that. So it ended up not being a bad idea, because I could have really, really, really got in trouble and got kicked out. Yeah.
So it wasn't that bad.
It wasn't that bad, but it really could have been bad if they wanted it to be. Yeah, but I was fortunate.
Did you get to travel in Korea at all, or did you not?
I had the opportunity to travel, but because I was so homesick and I really just, I don't know, I was kind of hating the assignment. I just didn't go anywhere. I look back on it like, wow, I had an opportunity to really travel across the country and see stuff, but I didn't want to. And I understand things are so much different because I didn't really have a lot of traffic lights, and there were expectations for the military members, in terms of travel. If, say, for instance, we were in the taxi cab and the taxi was in an accident, then we could be blamed for the accident, because if the taxi wasn't transporting us, or the taxi driver wasn't transporting us, then they wouldn't have been at that place at that time where the accident was. So I was like, that's crazy. I don't want to go out. So
did you live on post?
Oh, of course. Absolutely.
Did you have something that you kept for good luck?
No, not particularly. I don't remember keeping anything for good luck.
Did your family
Other
send,
than pictures of my family, yeah.
did your family send you goodie bags or
Oh,
goodie?
absolutely.
What was
Yeah.
your best thing that you got? Can you remember anything?
Some cookies, and I think my grandmother made a fruit cake. I wasn't really a big fan of fruitcakes, but I guess the transit time, I think they pour rum or something on the fruitcake, so it had a chance to kind of marinate. So yeah, so it was pretty good, pretty good.
Did you have plenty of supplies?
I believe that we did. I believe that we did, particularly in the work environment. I don't remember there being a lack.
Were there any entertainers that came to see you when you were over there?
No, not that I remember. They may have come. There was a larger base that was, I think it was Busan. It was Busan. There was Air Force Base. They may have gotten maybe more entertainment and stuff than we did.
Did you have a lot of friends over there?
Yeah, I made a lot of friends.
Do you still keep in touch with them?
No, I don't. I wish. I can remember one friend. We loved to dance, and I don't know if I should say his name on tape, but it was from New York, and at the time there was a dance they called the Hustle, and there was a place right next to the Camp Walker called the Bat Cave, and so we would go and dance, and there were people who were couples, and we just had kind of a camaraderie, and I was also part of a band. As a matter of fact, I couldn't sing that well, but they let me sing with them. I had been in the choir in high school, and so it was a drummer and a guitarist and myself and I think another person that was playing. It was a lead guitar and a bass guitar and drummer. Maybe somebody was playing keyboard. So it was pretty cool. It was kind of like a hobby, pastime, and kept us out of trouble.
Do you recall the day your service ended?
I do remember my service that ended, the last portion of my service when I was active duty reserves. I do remember that because I had two small boys and they were 15 months apart. And my husband was commuting back and forth to Chicago because he had gotten reinstated with the school board. And it was just like, this active duty service woman, mother kind of thing, and trying to coordinate all of that. So I do remember that because it was kind of like a relief on one hand, but then I thought about, wow, this career and being able to potentially be promoted to E7, but still really being anxious to get back to my educational goals to become a nurse.
So did you ever get your health care license?
Yes.
Did you?
Yes.
You became a nurse?
I became a nurse. Yes.
Is that what you do now?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
How long have you worked for the VA?
I've been with the VA now. It will be 3 years in June. 3 years in June.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and it's interesting. While I was in nursing school in St. Louis, I worked as a nurse tech, which is a part-time job at the VA in St. Louis at we call John Cochran VA. And I worked in the ER, and I worked in the mental health, was called the alcohol and drug detox unit. And I kind of always wanted to work with the VA, but my interest was more so women's health, and at that time there wasn't hardly any opportunity for nurses in women's health in the VA.
Now there is?
Yes. It's growing, absolutely, because we've got a growing population of women veterans.
Do you, no, you said that you didn't. Did you join a veterans organization?
No, I didn't. I haven't. I've been considering that, but I haven't.
How has your service and experience affected your life?
Oh, wow. In many ways, I could think about, work ethic, a further reinforcement of a person that's flexible and adapts and overcomes barriers and obstacles, a can-do spirit, teamwork, pride in the work that I do, discipline, having a feeling of being able to accomplish goals in spite of barriers or obstacles. It makes me, I guess, walk tall, because I know that I've experienced the military and a military lifestyle and work ethic, as I've mentioned before. I think really, I guess, discipline and flexibility and integrity are the things that kind of come to mind.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, not at this time. I think that's all.
Okay. Well, I would like to take this time and say thank you for serving our country. And then the other thing I'd like to do is say thank you for allowing me to be the one that interviewed you today. And I would like to say that I was honored.
Thank you.